Friendsify you want to watch super hit movie Tangled in English? Then you must like this video if you are visiting our channel for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends. In today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Tangled. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of them storylines, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end. Start the video. Tangled is a 2010 American animated musical adventure fantasy comedy produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. Loosely based on the German fairy tale Rapunzel in the collection of folk tales published by the Brothers Grimm, the film was directed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard and produced by Roy Conli from a screenplay written by Dan Fogelman, featuring the voices of Mandy Moore, Zachary Levi, and Donna Murphy. Tangled tells the story of Rapunzel, a lost young princess with magical long blonde hair who yearns to leave her secluded tower. She accepts the aid of an intruder, the outlaw Flynn Rider, to take her out into the world which she has never seen. Originally conceived and proposed by Disney animator Glenn Keane in 2001, Tangled spent 6 years in production at a cost that has been estimated at $260 million, which, if accurate, would make it the most expensive animated feature film ever made and one of the most expensive films of all time. The film employed a unique artistic style by blending together features of computer-generated imagery, CGI, and traditional animation while using non-photorealistic rendering to create the impression of a painting. Composer Alan Menken, who had worked on prior Disney animated features, returned to score Tangled and also wrote the film's songs with lyricist Glenn Slater. Before the film's release, its title was changed from Rapunzel to Tangled, reportedly to market the film gender-neutrally. Tangled premiered at the El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles on November 14, 2010, and went into general release on November 24th. The film earned $592 million in worldwide box office revenue, $200 million of which was earned in the United States and Canada, making it the 8th highest grossing film of 2010. Tangled received positive reviews from critics who praised the animation, writing, characters, and musical score. The film was nominated for a number of awards, including Best Original Song at the 83rd Academy Awards. It was Richard Keel's last film role before his death in 2014. The film was released on DVD and Blu-ray on March 29, 2011. A short film, Tangled Ever After, was released later in 2012, and a television series aired from 2017 to 2020. A live-action remake was in development but put on hold indefinitely in April 2025 due to the commercial failure of Snow White 2025. Plot: a drop of sunlight falls from the sky and produces a magic flower with healing properties. An old woman named Gothel uses it to retain her youth. Centuries later, the flower is taken by soldiers from the kingdom of Corona and used to save their ill pregnant queen. She gives birth to Rapunzel, whose blonde hair contains the flower's magic. Gothel sneaks into the castle and cuts a lock of her hair, but it turns brown and loses its magic. She then decides to kidnap Rapunzel and raise her in a hidden tower in the woods, keeping Rapunzel's magic for herself. Each year on Rapunzel's birthday, the king and queen release sky lanterns, hoping they will guide Rapunzel home. As expected, Rapunzel is fascinated by the annual lights and, on her 18th birthday, asks to leave the tower and investigate them, but Gothel refuses, claiming the outside world is too dangerous. Meanwhile, Flynn Rider steals Rapunzel's intended crown from the palace. He betrays the Stabbington brothers, his partners in crime, while being pursued by Royal Guard horse Maximus. Flynn discovers and takes refuge in the tower, where Rapunzel knocks him out and hides him. When Gothel berates Rapunzel for mentioning the lanterns again and refuses to let her ever leave the tower, Rapunzel hatches a new plan and asks Gothel for new paint as a gift, sending her on a 3-day journey. After hiding Flynn's satchel containing the crown, Rapunzel strikes a deal with Flynn, promising to return the crown in exchange for taking her to see the lanterns. When they stop at the Snuggly Duckling pub, menacing thugs try to capture the wanted Flynn, but Rapunzel charms them into revealing their softer sides. When royal guards arrive, the thugs help Rapunzel and Flynn escape. Gothel returns to the empty tower and finds the crown and a wanted poster of Flynn. She strikes a deal with the Stabbington brothers to find Rapunzel. Flynn and Rapunzel become trapped in a fast-flooding cave. Believing they will suffocate, Flynn reveals his true name, Eugene Fitzherbert. Rapunzel uses the magic glow of her hair to reveal a hidden exit beneath the water, and they escape. That night, Gothel confronts Rapunzel alone and gives her the satchel, telling her to give it to Eugene to test his loyalty. The next morning, Maximus tracks down Eugene and attempts to arrest him, but Rapunzel convinces them to strike a truce. Rapunzel and Eugene enter the kingdom and attend a festival in honor of the lost princess. After a day of celebration, they sail onto the lake to watch the release of the lanterns. Rapunzel gives Eugene the crown and they confess their mutual love. When Eugene sees the Stabbingtons on the shore, he goes to apologize and offers them the crown. The brothers tie him up, tricking Rapunzel into thinking he abandoned her. They try to capture Rapunzel, but Gothel stages a rescue by knocking them out and takes Rapunzel back to the tower. Eugene is arrested, but Maximus and the pub thugs help him escape. Meanwhile, Rapunzel realizes she has subconsciously incorporated the kingdom standard, a golden sun, into her artwork throughout her life. Realizing that she is the lost princess, she confronts and rebels against Gothel. Eugene arrives at the tower but is tricked and stabbed by Gothel. Gothel attempts to take the chained and gagged Rapunzel away, but she resists and promises to stay with Gothel if she is allowed to heal the dying Eugene. Gothel reluctantly agrees, but Eugene, realizing Rapunzel would spend the rest of her life in captivity, cuts off her long hair before she can heal him. Rapunzel's hair turns from blonde to brown, and a horrified Gothel suddenly ages rapidly before falling from the tower to her death, turning to dust in the process. Eugene dies in Rapunzel's arms. Rapunzel mourns Eugene, but one of her tears, which still has some of the flower's magic, revives him. They return to Corona, where Rapunzel is reunited with her birth parents, and the kingdom celebrates, with Rapunzel and Eugene eventually marrying. Voice cast. Main article, list of Disney's Tangled characters. Mandy Moore as Rapunzel. Delaney Rose Stein as young Rapunzel. Zachary Levi as Flynn Rider. Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel. Brad Garrett as Hook Hand Thug. Ron Perlman as Stabbington Broth. Jeffrey Tambor as Big Nose Thug. Richard Keel as Vlad. M.C. Gainey as Captain of the Guard. Paul F. Tompkins as Short Thug. Non-speaking animal characters include Rapunzel's pet chameleon Pascal and Maximus, the horse of the head of the palace guard. Other non-speaking roles include Rapunzel's parents, the King and Queen of Corona, the other Stabbington brother, and Ulf the Mime Thug. Production, origins and conception. Walt Disney himself had first attempted to adapt the Brothers Grimm fairy tale Rapunzel into a feature-length animated film during the 1930s and 1940s, but Disney's efforts never fully materialized because the original story was considered too small. The concept behind Tangled originated from the Walt Disney Company supervising animator Glenn Keane in 1996 and 2001. Keane pitched the idea to then Disney CEO Michael Eisner, who approved it but requested the film to be computer animated. However, Keane was hesitant as he felt computer animation was not quite as fluid or organic as traditional animation was. In October 2003, the film was announced as Rapunzel Unbraided as a computer-animated feature scheduled for a 2007 release, which Keane described as a Shrek-like version of the film. According to Ed Catmull, Eisner himself had proposed using modern-day San Francisco as the initial setting of the film. The story initially centered on two teenagers, Claire and Vince, who live in San Francisco and are transported into the fairy tale world, where they inhabit the bodies of Rapunzel and her prince Beau. Rapunzel and Bo themselves are turned into a squirrel and a dog. In July 2004, Reese Witherspoon and Kristen Chenoweth were in talks to portray roles, with the latter intended to voice Rapunzel. In October 2005, Dan Fogler was slated to provide a voice. In reflection, Keane said of the original plot, "It was a fun, wonderful, witty version, and we had a couple of great writers. But in my heart of hearts, I believed there was something much more sincere and genuine to get out of the story. So we set it aside and went back to the roots of the original fairy tale." In November 2005, Unbraided was pushed back to a summer 2009 release in order to give Keane more time to work on the story. In January 2006, the film was then shut down about a week before Catmull and John Lasseter were placed in charge of the studio, and one of their first decisions was to restart the project and ask Keane to keep going with the film. It had originally been announced in April 2007 that Annie-nominated animator and story artist Dean Wellens would be co-directing the film alongside Keane. On October 9, 2008, it was reported that Keane and Wellens had stepped down as directors due to other commitments and were replaced by the team of Byron Howard and Nathan Greno, director and storyboard director, respectively, of Disney's 2008 animated feature Bolt. Keane stayed on as an executive producer and animation supervisor, while Wellens moved on to direct Tick-Tock Tale, 2010. After the film's release, Keane revealed that he had stepped back from the role of director because of a heart attack in 2008. Casting. The directors auditioned hundreds of young actresses to find Rapunzel's voice. Among them were Idina Menzel and Kristen Bell, but both were rejected for not sounding right. On September 10, 2009, it was announced that singer-songwriter and actress Mandy Moore, who previously worked with Disney on Disney Toon Studios' Brother Bear 2, had been cast as the voice of Rapunzel, and actor Zachary Levi would provide the voice of Flynn Rider. For the role of Flynn, the studio mandated exclusively only UK actors to audition for the part, as Rider was intended to be British. An American, Zachary Levi, impersonated a British received pronunciation accent to audition, leading the producers to opt for him to use his natural American accent. Mandy Moore approached the project through auditioning when she heard that a film about the story of Rapunzel was being made. Moore later expressed that she had dreamed to be a Disney princess since she was young and said that with the role of Rapunzel she had fulfilled her ultimate childhood dream. She described herself as a girly fan of Disney animated films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King, and that it was an honor for her to be part of this legacy, the lineage of such Disney icons. Since the film was going to be a musical, it was required that all auditionees had to read several scenes and perform a song of their choice to ensure that the voice actors could both act and sing. For this singing section, Moore chose Help Me by Joni Mitchell, a song that she herself had covered on her fourth studio album, Coverage 2003. Moore revealed that she had to attend several audition sessions and described the experiences as pretty fun, but didn't put much hope in getting the part because she believed there would be much competition for this role. She just performed her best without any anxiety. When she received a call back from Disney telling that she got the part, Moore described herself as being over the moon. "I was working in New York at the time. I was with some friends and my husband, and I screamed as soon as I found out the news." The film reportedly cost more than $260 million to produce. Writing and character development. When asked about the character of Rapunzel, Mandy Moore said that Rapunzel was a relatable character and called her a Renaissance bohemian woman rather than a typical Disney princess. Moore said, "Rapunzel doesn't know she's a princess until the end of the film. She's just really sort of motivated to find out what else is out there beyond this crazy tower she's lived in for 18 years. And that she's very independent. She can take care of herself, and she's definitely come up with really entertaining ways to keep herself busy." Moore also stated that she herself had little influence on Rapunzel. "The character was developed way before I had anything to do with it. According to Greno, one of the most difficult problems during the development of the film's plot was how to get Rapunzel out of the tower without immediately ending the movie, in that she had thereby escaped Mother Gothel and did not have any other specific objectives to pursue. At a meeting one day, animator John Ripa floated an idea which turned out to be the solution they had been looking for: the mysterious floating lanterns. Recording. In Tangled, as with most animated films, all voice actors had to record their dialogue separately from one another to avoid bleeding into each other's tracks. Mandy Moore later recalled that during recording, she had never met Donna Murphy and only met Zachary Levi once when they recorded "I See the Light." Moore thought that this was a good exercise in employing your imagination. When recording action scenes, the voice actors had to jog a little in place in order to make their voices sound realistic. For the songs, Moore and Levi recorded on a soundstage with a 65-piece orchestra under the supervision of composer Alan Menken. They sang live with the orchestra for several times in order to help everyone get a vibe and a feel for the music and the singing, then were asked to go in isolation booths to record the actual tracks. In order to aid animators in animating the characters, the filmmakers did interviews with the voice actors and filmed their facial expressions throughout the recording sessions. Disney animated films are usually animated to synchronize with recorded dialogue rather than asking the vocal talent to synchronize their delivery to animation after it is rendered. Thus, Moore felt that the recording process was challenging because at that time she had no animation to look at except for a few sketches. Due to scheduling conflicts with other projects, Moore had to travel to different places such as London or New York, and Levi could only record on weekends for 5 hours once every 6 weeks. They did not record dialogue in the same order as in the final film. When I came in, maybe that sequence or scene had been recorded by Mandy Moore already. Maybe it hadn't. We'd end up doing the same scene 5 times, depending, Levi said. After watching the finished film, Moore was disappointed because she felt that her voice sounded shrill, while Levi thought that his performance sounded incredibly nasally. Animation. The film was made using computer-generated imagery, CGI, although Tangled was modeled on the traditional look of oil paintings on canvas. The Rococo paintings of French artist Jean-Honoré Fragonard, particularly the swing, were used as references for the film's artistic style, a style described by Keane as romantic and lush. To create the impression of a painting, non-photorealistic rendering was used. Glenn Keane originally wanted the film to be animated using a traditional 2D animation process. However, Disney executives David Stainton and Dick Cook announced that they would only approve the film for production if it were created using the 3D computer graphics. In response to that demand, Glenn Keane held a seminar called The Best of Both Worlds, where he, with 50 Disney CGI artists and traditional artists, focused on the pros and cons of each style. After the meeting, it was decided that the film would be made in 3D CGI animation, but in a way as to become an extension of the traditional 2D Disney aesthetic, a term which referred to the naturalistic animation that conforms to the fundamental principles of animation as documented by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston in the book The Illusion of Life, Disney Animation. Due to limitations in computer technology, especially regarding attempts to capture the complexity of a human form, many basic principles of animation used in traditionally animated movies had been absent from earlier CGI films, but technological advancements made it easier to blend the two, combining the strengths of each style. Keane stated repeatedly he was trying to make the computer bend its knee to the artist, instead of having the computer dictate the artistic style and look of the film. By making the computer become as pliable as the pencil, Keane's vision of a three-dimensional drawing seemed within reach, with the artist controlling the technology. Many of the techniques and tools that were required to give the film the quality Keane demanded did not exist when the project was started, and Walt Disney Animation Studios had to create them on their own. Keane said, "There's no photoreal hair. I want luscious hair, and we are inventing new ways of doing that. I want to bring the warmth and intuitive feel of hand-drawn to CGI." One of the main goals of the animators was to create movement that mimicked the soft fluidity of the hand-drawn art found in older Disney animated films. Keane credited Disney 3D animator Kyle Strawitz with helping to combine CGI with the traditional hand-drawn style. He took the house from Snow White and built it and painted it so it looked like a flat painting that suddenly started to move, and it had dimension and kept all of the soft, round curves of the brushstrokes of watercolor. Kyle helped us get that Fragonard look of that girl on the swing. We are using subsurface scattering and global illumination and all of the latest techniques to pull off convincing human characters and rich environments. Rather than focusing on realism, the 3D team used an aesthetic approach. Robert Newman, the film's stereoscopic supervisor, said that we're using depth more artistically than ever before, and we're not as concerned with the literal transcription of depth between camera and projector as we are the interpretation of it. To do this, they used a new technique called multi-rigging, which is made up of multiple pairs of virtual cameras. Each pair is used individually on each separate element that adds depth to a scene, like background, foreground, and characters, without adjusting for the relation with the other pairs. When sandwiched together later in production, the result was something that would be visually impossible in the real world, but which created an appealing look to the film. As a counterpart to the appealing and cute design of Rapunzel, the directors wanted to make Flynn Rider the most handsome, most attractive male lead Disney has ever had. They held a large hot man meeting where they gathered about 30 women from the studio and asked them what they considered attractive in a man. They brought in hundreds of images of their favorite male actors and celebrities, which were torn and pasted back again. After much deliberation, his look was eventually narrowed down to one concept drawing. Technology development. Existing technology continued to present difficulties. In particular, animating hair turned out to be a challenge. Senior software engineer Kelly Ward spent 6 years writing programs to make it move the way they wanted. As late as January 2010, the directors were still not sure if the Rapunzel character's length of hair was going to work. These problems were finally solved in March. An improved version of a hair simulation program named Dynamic Wires, originally developed for Bolt, was eventually used. To make hair float believably in water, and to surmount other similar challenges, discrete differential geometry was used to produce the desired effects, freeing the animators from executing these specific tasks directly, which would have taken days instead of minutes. Controversy over the film title change. When first put into production, the film was promoted as having the title Rapunzel Unbraided, which was later changed to Rapunzel. Disney's previous animated feature, The Princess and the Frog, 2009, while being well received by various critics, was not as successful as Disney had hoped, and Catmull later admitted in writing that Disney Animation's faith that The Princess and the Frog's excellent quality would bring in all audiences, notwithstanding the word princess in the title, was their version of a stupid pill. In order to market the new film to both sexes and additional age groups, Disney changed the title from Rapunzel to Tangled, while also emphasizing Flynn Rider, the film's prominent male character, showing that his story is just as important as that of Rapunzel. Disney was criticized for altering the title as a marketing strategy. Floyd Norman, a former Disney and Pixar animator and story artist, said, "The idea of changing the title of a classic like Rapunzel to Tangled is beyond stupid. I'm convinced they'll gain nothing from this except the public seeing Disney as desperately trying to find an audience." Justin Chang of Variety compared it to changing the title of The Little Mermaid to Beached. Writing for the San Francisco Chronicle's blog, Margot Magawan accused Disney of sexism, writing, "Can you imagine if Disney switched a movie title so it wouldn't risk highlighting a male star? It's awful that this kind of radical gender discrimination exists for our smallest people, little kids who come into this world with huge imaginations and aspirations, big dreams that get squashed by a bunch of billionaire guys who run massive entertainment franchises." On November 24, 2010, the day of the film's release, directors Nathan Greno and Byron Howard disputed reports that the title change was a marketing decision. They said they changed the title from Rapunzel to Tangled because Rapunzel is not the only main character in the film. They went on to say that you cannot call Toy Story Buzz Lightyear, and they really needed a title that represented what the film is, and that it stars the duo of Rapunzel and Flynn Rider. In March 2014, executive producer John Lasseter explained that Disney had changed the name to improve the film's appeal to the 4 quadrants. There was an audience perception that these movies were just for little girls, but when boys, men, whatever actually see these movies, they like them. So on Rapunzel, we changed the name and we called it Tangled. We did marketing that made the people who would not normally show up say, "Hey, this looks pretty good." Music. Main article, Tangled. The musical score and soundtrack album were composed by Alan Menken with lyrics written by Glenn Slater. It marked Menken's return to scoring for animated films after recurringly doing so for several Disney animation films till Home on the Range, 2004. As several Pixar employees being in charge for Disney and the sensibilities being changed, Menken thought it as his biggest creative challenge and said that he was finding a way that we could wed musical theater storytelling with the Pixar style of storytelling was primary. Menken said he attempted to blend medieval music with 1960s folk rock to create the new songs, and the score and soundtrack were recorded at a span of 2.5 years. Several songs were written, but eventually cut from the final film. When Will My Life Begin replaced an earlier version called What More Could I Ever Need? Menken reported that opening number went through 5 or 6 different versions. Elsewhere, Menken reported that there was originally a love song called You Are My Forever that Mother Gothel sang to Rapunzel in a motherly way, but was reprised later in the film by Flynn Rider in a romantic way. This idea was apparently replaced with the 2 songs Mother Knows Best and I See the Light. The song Something That I Want, written and performed by Grace Potter from Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, is featured in the closing credits. The Latin American Spanish version of the song, titled Algo Quiero Querer, was recorded by Colombian pop singer Fannie Lou. The soundtrack, released on Walt Disney Records on November 10, 2010, and peaked at number 44 on the Billboard 200, number 7 on the soundtrack chart, and number 3 on the Kid Albums chart. 4 years later, a double LP picture disc titled as Songs from Tangled was released on March 21st, 2014. Release, theatrical. Tangled premiered in Paris on November 17th, exclusively screening at the Grand Rex Theatre 2 weeks in advance of its French-wide release. With over 3,800 tickets sold on its opening day, it set a new record for films showing in a single theater. As part of Disney's 100th anniversary, Tangled was re-released in Helios theaters across Poland on October 21, 2023. Home media. Tangled was released by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment as a 4-disc combo pack on March 29, 2011. The combo pack includes a Blu-ray 3D, standard Blu-ray, DVD, and digital copy. A 2-disc Blu-ray DVD combo pack and single DVD are also available. Bonus features for the Blu-ray include deleted scenes, 2 alternate opening sequences, 2 extended songs, and an inside look at how the film was made. The DVD includes only the 2 original storybook openings and the 50th animated feature countdown. Sales of Tangled in the U.S. and Canada exceeded $95 million in DVD and Blu-ray sales, the highest grossing DVD of the year 2011. Its home video sales exceeded the film's earnings in its first week in theaters. The film sold a record 2,970,052 units, the equivalent of $44,501,079 in its first week in North America, the largest opening for a 2011 DVD. It dominated for 2 weeks on the DVD sales chart and sold 6,657,331 units, $102,154 as of July 18, 2012. It has also sold 2,518,22 Blu-ray units, $59,200,275 by May 29, 2011. As of January 20th, 2016, the film has earned a total of $215 million in home video sales in the United States and Canada, $155 million from DVD sales, and $60 million from Blu-ray sales. Tangled was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray on November 5th, 2019. Reception. Box office. Tangled had a worldwide opening weekend of $86.1 million and reached the summit of the worldwide box office once on its 11th weekend, Feb 4 to 6, 2011, with $24.9 million. The film earned $200.8 million in North America and $391.6 million in other countries for a worldwide total of $592.5 million, making it the third highest grossing animated film of 2010. Behind Shrek Forever After and Toy Story 3, and the 8th highest grossing film of 2010. It was the third Disney film appearing in the top 10 films of 2010. As of 2017, it was the 6th highest grossing film worldwide, produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios, behind Frozen, Zootopia, The Lion King, Big Hero 6, and Moana. Tangled earned $11.9 million on its opening Wednesday 98, breaking the record for the largest pre-Thanksgiving Wednesday opening, a record previously held by Disney Pixar's Toy Story 2. In its first weekend of release, it earned $48.8 million, the highest opening for Walt Disney Animation Studios, surpassing The Lion King, $40.9 million, and later surpassed by both Wreck-It Ralph, $49 million, and Frozen, $67.4 million. Placing second for the period behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, which earned $49.1 million. Tangled had the 6th highest opening weekend for a film that did not debut at number 1. Over the traditional Wednesday, Sunday, Thanksgiving holiday period, it tallied $68.7 million, again finishing in second place. Tangled also marked the second largest 3-day and 5-day Thanksgiving opening after Toy Story 2. During its second weekend, post-Thanksgiving, Tangled declined 56% to $21.6 million, although it jumped to first place at the box office. With a final gross of $200.8 million, it is the 10th highest grossing film of 2010 and the 10th 2010 film to pass the $200 million mark. It was the 4th slowest film to pass this mark. Unadjusted for inflation, it is the 9th highest grossing film produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios, behind The Lion King, $422.8 million, Frozen, $400.7 million, Zootopia, $341.3 million, Moana, $248.7 million, Big Hero 6, $221.3 million, Beauty and the Beast, $219 million, Aladdin, $217.4 million, Ralph Breaks the Internet, $201.1 million. On its opening weekend, it earned $17.4 million in 8 territories and ranked second for the weekend behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, $117.3 million. It reached first place at the weekend box office outside North America 3 times in 2011. It marked the 7th highest grossing 2010 film and the 3rd highest grossing 2010 animated film. In Russia and the CIS, it set an opening weekend record among non-sequel animated films, first surpassed by Rio, and among Walt Disney Animation Studios films, surpassed by Frozen. Its highest grossing markets outside North America was Germany, $44.2 million, where it is the highest grossing 2010 animated film, followed by France and the Maghreb region, $39.4 million, and the UK, Ireland, and Malta, $32.9 million. Critical response. Tangled received largely positive reviews from critics upon release. Rotten Tomatoes gives the film an approval rating of 89% based on 226 reviews and an average score of 7.5/10. The website's critical consensus is, while far from Disney's greatest film, Tangled is a visually stunning, thoroughly entertaining addition to the studio's classic animated canon. Metacritic, which assigns a weighted average score based on reviews from mainstream film critics, calculated a score of 71/100 based on 34 reviews, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore during the opening weekend gave the film a rare average grade A+ on an A+ to F scale. A.O. Scott of the New York Times positively reviewed the film as the 50th animated feature from Disney, and its look and spirit convey a modified, updated, but nonetheless sincere and unmistakable quality of old-fashioned Disneyness. Time film critic Richard Corliss wrote that Tangled wades into the DreamWorks style of sitcom gags and anachronistic sass, while praising the film for achieving the complex mix of romance, comedy, adventure, and heart that defines the best Disney features. Corliss included Tangled at 19 in a list of top 25 all-time best animated films. Kenneth Turan from the Los Angeles Times awarded the film 4 stars out of 5. He described the film as a gorgeous computer-animated look that features rich landscapes and characters that look fuller and more lifelike than they have in the past. Sandy Angelo Chin of Common Sense Media gave the film 5 out of 5 stars, writing, "Fantastic princess adventure is fun with great messages." Gail Cooper of NBC News expressed that Tangled may be the best Disney film of all time. James Berardinelli commented on his review website Real Views that the film is entertaining and enjoyable, but not groundbreaking. He also stated Rapunzel is not as memorable as Snow White, Ariel, or Belle, as well as stating the songs are neither catchy nor memorable. Todd McCarthy, film reviewer for The Hollywood Reporter, opened his review with, "It would have been nice if Disney's self-touted 50th animated feature were one of its best, a film that could stand with the studio's classics. But the world will have to make do with Tangled, a passably entertaining hodgepodge of old and new animation techniques, mixed sensibilities, and hedged commercial calculations." Accolade. The film has been nominated for a number of awards. Hollywood Foreign Press Association nominated Tangled for 2 Golden Globe Awards for Best Animated Feature Film and Best Original Song for I See the Light, but lost to Toy Story 3 and Burlesque, respectively. It also received an Oscar nomination for the Best Original Song, I See the Light. The film also received 2 nominations for the Broadcast Film Critics Association in the same categories, though lost to Toy Story 3 and 127 Hours, as well as nominations for 2 Annie Awards for Best Animated Feature Film and for Writing in a Feature Production. Tangled was also nominated for 2 Phoenix Film Critics Society Awards, Best Animated Film and Best Original Song for I've Got a Dream, which it lost to Toy Story 3 and Burlesque. I See the Light was nominated for Best Original Song at the 83rd Academy Awards, but lost to We Belong Together from Toy Story 3. It has also been nominated for 37th Saturn Award for Best Animated Film. Tangled won Best 3D Scene of the Year at the 2nd Annual International 3D Society Creative Arts Awards. Tangled was also nominated for Favorite Film in the British Academy Children Awards for Favorite Film, competing against films like Harry Potter and The Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Cars 2, and Kung Fu Panda 2. Other media. Video games. Main article, Tangled the Video Game. A video game based on the film was released on November 23, 2010 for Nintendo DS, Wii, and PC platforms by Disney Interactive Studios. A world based on the film, Kingdom of Corona, appears in Kingdom Hearts 3, released on January 29, 2019 for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The story arc takes place during an alternate account of the events of the movie. In the video game Disney Magic Kingdoms, Rapunzel, Flynn, Maximus, Mother Gothel, and Pascal are playable characters, while Rapunzel's Tower and Snuggly Duckling appear as attractions. The storyline of the characters in the game follows almost the same plot as in the film. Rapunzel, Flynn Rider, Maximus, and Mother Gothel are all playable heroes in Disney Heroes Battle Mode. The Stabbington brothers also appear in Mother Gothel's White Skill. Mother Gothel is also featured in Disney Dreamlight Valley. Short film. Main article, Tangled Ever After. Tangled Ever After is a short sequel released in 2012. The plot revolves around the wedding of Rapunzel and Eugene. Pascal and Maximus lose the wedding rings and chase after them, causing collateral damage along the way. Manga. A manga adaptation of the film with illustrations by Shiori Kanaki was released to promote the film's Japanese release on March 25, 2011. It was later released in the United States on September 12, 2017. Descendants. In Descendants, School of Secrets, Rapunzel has an unnamed daughter. In Descendants, Wicked World, Rapunzel has a daughter named Ruby. Originally, Rapunzel was going to appear in Descendants: The Rise of Red as a teenager named Zelly. During early screenwriting, the creators made Zelly the teenage daughter of Rapunzel before rewriting the script so that Zelly would be Rapunzel, as if Rapunzel left her tower to go to Merlin Academy. However, Rapunzel was eventually deleted from the final film, causing Zelly to be rewritten as a cameo character named Meadow, portrayed by Sam Morelos. Stage adaptation. An abridged stage adaptation titled Tangled, the Musical, premiered on board the Disney Magic of the Disney Cruise Line in November 2015, featuring 3 new songs written by Alan Menken and Glenn Slater. In February 2024, it was reported that Disney Theatrical Group is developing a new stage adaptation of the film, with a workshop underway. Television series. Further information: Tangled Before Ever After and Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. Tangled Before Ever After, a television movie set between the feature film and the short film Tangled Ever After, aired on March 10, 2017, serving as an introduction to a continuing television series, Tangled the Series, later renamed Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, that started airing on Disney Channel on March 24, 2017. It ran for 3 seasons and 60 episodes until March 2020. Future. Potential sequel. In December 2014, Tangled's producer, Roy Conli, revealed that the production team had been heavily pushed for a feature-length sequel to the film, but when the writers and directors got together to develop one, they realized she cut her hair. It's over. Conli explained that at Disney Animation under Lasseter, it is always the filmmakers who decide whether they are ready to make a sequel, not marketing or merchandising. In January 2015, Conli again provided a similar explanation when pressed on this point, and also mentioned that directors Greno and Howard ultimately weren't really interested in continuing the story. Live-action adaptation. In May 2020, Hannah Shaw Williams of Screen Rant asked whether the success of the movie would lead to a sequel, apart from the short film Tangled Ever After, stating there is no word of it being in active development, while also stating that Disney is developing a live-action movie about Rapunzel, and stating that it would take several years for a possible movie to reach theaters. The latter film was confirmed to be in development in December 2024, with Michael Gracie attached to direct and Jennifer Caton Robinson writing the script. In April 2025, it was reported that development on the film had been halted indefinitely due to the commercial failure of Snow White 2025. Tangled could have been a disaster. Directors Nathan Greno and Byron Howard really pushed for something different by attempting to modernize a classic tale for contemporary audiences while combining the classic storylines and imagery of Disney's illustrious past. All of that experimentation can unbalance a film by leaning too heavily on one side or the other, but Tangled does a remarkable job at harmonizing the past and present. Gorgeous CG, an involving and up-tempo score, and some of the best sidekicks seen on screen propel this take on the character of Rapunzel. There is a sense of contemporary fun throughout the film, and yet the heart remains where it should, right in the middle. My full review after the jump. Mother Gothel, Donna Murphy, has sheltered and raised Rapunzel, Mandy Moore, as her own to utilize her mysterious restorative hair. But the world beckons to the young girl from her secluded tower in the form of floating lanterns each year on the day of her birth. When smooth-talking thief Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, seeks the shelter of the tower after stealing a crown, he is lured into guiding Rapunzel and her pet chameleon Pascal to the lanterns on the promise that his stolen crown will be the reward. Despite Rapunzel having mixed emotions about leaving, they have nowhere to go but forward when the vigilant palace horse Maximus, Mother Gothel, and the Stabbington brothers, Ron Perlman, come after them. As their journey brings them closer to danger, truths are revealed that will forever affect themselves and the kingdom around them. The journey is the bulk of the film, which is a curious twist on the story of Rapunzel. Instead of lingering in the tower as the grim fairy tale does, Tangled opts to leave the tower behind within the first 15 minutes of the film. Right away, we know that this isn't going to stick to the conventions of the story, which it is based, which is fine by co-directors Nathan and Byron. The duo bring a knack for action set pieces that propel the story forward along the 100-minute runtime, and yet the film delivers two emotional punches. One is subtle, while the other is obvious, and they continually play with that mixture throughout. While Tangled takes inspiration from the tale of Rapunzel, the entire cast of characters is what makes the film such a success. Flynn has a fun sense of humor and his wit is blisteringly quick. Some of his lines will fly over the heads of young ones, but register completely with the older audience. Meanwhile, Rapunzel is immature and goofy, but has a voracious appetite for exploration that her tower simply cannot quell. Then we have Mothel Gothel, who is dark and cunning, and manages to form a mother-daughter bond that is realistically twisted. Murphy provides the perfect mixture that makes Mother Gothel so haunting. She can't help but fall for the alluring Rapunzel, but their relationship is based on lies and deception for Gothel's gain. She has no magical power of her own, so she has to be subtle in her deceits, which to me makes her one of the best villains in the heritage of Disney. Luckily, the great characters don't stop there. Slapstick is a constant source of laughter for the younger audience members, and it frequently stems from Pascal and Maximus, two of the most memorable animal sidekicks you likely have seen. While neither character talks, both are expressive in their own ways. Pascal changes color based on mood and is a positive inspiration for Rapunzel throughout the film. As for Maximus, he is part horse, part super cop, and has an entire character arc within the film. Again, we see the directors playing with conventions, as Maximus has decidedly canine temperaments that play out incredibly well on screen. When was the last time you saw a horse wag its tail? Speaking of the screen, the animation is where the film really makes every effort to impress. Over the last few years, animation has made incredible leaps and bounds in ways that many audience members may have not noticed. However, when you deal with a film about Rapunzel, you have to account for 70 feet of flowing blonde hair, and hair is something many animated CG films struggle with even today. If the hair doesn't work, Tangled doesn't work, period. That's why animation director Glenn Keane, known for his fluid drawing and characters that deal with hair, and his animation team are worthy of praise. You may never notice how natural the characters and their hair moves, but that is the goal, to blend in and become seamless. The art throughout the film is also playing with old and new. The target is to bring the sensibility of hand-drawn animation to a CG film, and that's where the beauty of Tangled resides. The characters and backgrounds feel like classic Disney, but with modern techniques and visual appeal. You would be forgiven for mistaking stills of the film as traditional animation. Additionally, the stereoscopic 3D really pops in a number of scenes, including a climactic lake scene at night, but nothing is thrown at the screen. Whether you see that as a gimmick or not, it means the 3D isn't integral to the experience of the film. It's the cherry on this tasty cake, and some people don't like cherries or want to pay for them. Experimenting with different mixtures also seeps its way into the musical scores in Tangled, and that's where 8-time Oscar-winning composer Alan Menken shows his versatility. Menken has been a Disney staple on their animated musicals, and his talent shines through on Mother Gothel's Mother Knows Best. Catchy and dark, there are a number of variations to the tempo and tone throughout the film, while the lyrics nailed by Murphy will stay with you. Meanwhile, Menken went a different direction with Rapunzel's songs. Joni Mitchell is an influence on When Will My Life Begin, and the bare-bones use of guitar provides a different feel. One can easily see the parallels that Menken and the directors went for in blending old with new, and there is an interesting result. Mother Gothel's songs feel as ancient as she is, while Rapunzel's songs have a truly youthful exuberance and feel. There are pitfalls, as the film's constant mixture of tones can feel a bit off-putting for some. Inspiration is unabashedly taken from a number of eras, and the darkness of the film isn't quite as dark as past films in the illustrious history of Disney, and yet it feels more real. Gothel's character is grounded in reality, and her relationship with Rapunzel is a disturbing showcase of subtle brainwashing. Yet, Gothel will likely be one of the fan-favorite characters, even for the little ones. In the end, Tangled makes for a tasty smoothie that utilizes freshly picked ideas from Greno and Howard, while the classic storyline of discovery and adventure provide the usual vanilla standbys. There are exciting twists and turns when the film works, and the few pitfalls in the clashing tones of the characters aren't enough to keep the ball from rolling. While Disney may not have the dominating foothold on animated films like they used to, if they continue to make films with this much heart and fun, there is no doubt they can remain viable in this increasingly competitive genre. Voice cast: main article list of Disney's Tangled characters: Mandy Moore as Rapunzel Delaney, Rose Stein as young Rapunzel, Zachary Levi as Flynn Rider, Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel, Brad Garrett as Hookhand Thug, Ron Perlman as Stabbing Ton, Brother Jeffrey Tumbor as Big Nose Thug, Richard Keel as Vlad MC, Gay as Captain of the Guard, Paul F. Tompkins as Short Thug, non-speaking. Animal characters include Rapunzel's pet chameleon Pascal and Maximus the horse. Off the head of the palace guard, other non-speaking roles include Rapunzel's parents, the King and Queen of Corona, the other Stabbington brother and Oath. The Mima Thug production, Walt Disney himself had first attempted to adapt the brothers' grim fairy tale Rapunzel into a feature-length animated film during the 1930s and 1940s, but Disney's efforts never fully materialized because the original story was considered too small. The concept behind Tangled originated from the Walt Disney Company supervising animator Glenn Keane in 1996. In 2001, Keane pitched the idea to then Disney CEO Michael Eisner, who approved it but requested the animated. However, Keane was hesitant as he felt computer animation was not quite as fluid or organic as traditional animation was. In October 2003, the film was announced as Rapunzel Unbraided as a computer-animated feature scheduled for a 2007 release, which Keane described as a Shrek-like version of the film, according to Ed Catmull. Eisner himself had proposed using modern-day San Francisco. As the initial setting of the film, the story initially centered on two teenagers, Claire and Vince, who live in San Francisco and are transported into the fairy tale world where they inhabit the bodies of Rapunzel and her prince Rapunzel, and both themselves are turned into a squirrel-and a dog in July 2004. Reese Witherspoon and Kristen Chenoweth were in talks to portray roles, with the latter intended to voice Rapunzel. In October 2005, Dan Fogler was slated to provide a voice casting. The directors auditioned hundreds of young actresses, Tophi and Rapunzel's voice among them were Idina Menzel and Kristen Bell, but both were rejected for not sounding right. On September 10, 2009, it was announced that singer-songwriter and actress Mandy Moore, who previously worked with Disney on Disney Toon Studios' Brother Bear 2, had been cast as the voice of Rapunzel, and actor Zachary Levi would provide the voice of Flynn Rider, 11/12/33. For the role of Flynn, the studio mandated exclusively only UK actors to audition for the part, as Rider was intended to be British and American. Zachary Levi impersonated a British received pronunciation RP accent to audition, leading the producers to opt for him to use his natural American accent. Mandy Moore approached the project through auditioning when she heard that a film about the story of Rapunzel was being made. Moore later expressed that she had dreamed to be a Disney princess since she was young, and said that with the role of Rapunzel, she had fulfilled her ultimate childhood dream. She described herself as a girly fan of Disney animated films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King, and that it was an honor for her to be part of this legacy. The lineage of such DisneyCon, since the film was going to be a musical, was required that all auditionists had to read several scenes and perform a song of their choice to ensure that the voice actors could both act and sing for this singing section. Moore chose Help Me by Joni Mitchell, song that she herself had covered on her fourth studio album, Coverage 2003. Moore revealed that she had to attend several audition sessions and described the experiences as pretty fun, but didn't put much hope in getting the part. because she believed there would be much competition for this role. She just performed her best without any anxiety when she received a call back from Disney telling that she got the part. Moore described herself as being over the moon. I was working in New York. At the time, I was with some friends, and my husband and I screamed as soon as I found out the news. Music. The musical score and soundtrack album were composed by Alan Mine with lyrics written by Glenn Slater. It marked Mine's return to scoring for animated films, after recurringly doing so for several Disney animation films, till Home on the Range. 2004, as several Pixar employees being in charge for Disney and the sensibilities being changed, Mine thought it as his biggest creative challenge, and said that he was finding a way that we could wed musical theater storytelling with the Pixar style of storytelling was primary mean. Said he attempted to blend medieval music with 1960s folk rock to create the new songs, and the score and soundtrack were recorded at a span of 2.5 years. Release Tangled premiered in Paris on November 17th, exclusively screening at the Grand Rex Theater 2 weeks in advance of its French-wide release 83, with over 3,800 tickets sold on its opening day. It set new record for films showing in a single theater as part of Disney's 100th anniversary. Tangled was re-released in Helios theaters across Poland on October 21st, 2023. Tangled movie review. If only today's animation studios would realize that timeless fairy tales need not infuse hip humor into the scenario for modern audiences. To late legends like Robin Hood and Sleeping Beauty are passed down by generations of storytellers and require no postmodern filter, as their range is everlasting. Regardless of culture. Walt Disney realized this, and through his genius created equally timeless animated films. Like Pinocchio and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the studio hasn't quite followed in his footsteps with Tangled, an animated take on the legend Rapunzel as canonized by the Brothers Grimm. The studio's efforts can hardly be called timeless, as 20 years from now, audiences might laugh at the very 2010 mannerisms. Off the production and characters birthed from the post-Shrek school of snarky humor in a storybooks, editing the movie helmed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard. The co-director and director of Bolt places contemporary characters in a classicized setting, that is to say, not like Enchanted. Rather, they act and speak like 21st century people, but come from a storybook. They could be you or me. They speak with modernized lingo, such as "how you doing," which suggests they have friends wherever this story takes place, when she burst into song, the protagonist Valley Girl style. Vocalized pause, like can be heard, and don't forget a sarcastic really when a momento fun believable rudeness occurs. These incidents add up to the realization that screenwriter Dan Fogelman, Fred Klosh, is more concerned with cracking modern jokes than captivating the viewer through a period setting or fairy tale magic. The story opens once upon a time in a land far, far away, where the newborn princess is taken by a dastardly witch named Mother God, voice of Donna Murphy. Because the babe has magical curative powers in her golden hair, the witch wants eternally out, and only a special song makes the child's hair radiant medicinal light cutter. 18 years later, when Rapunzel, voice of Mandy Moore, has spent all her life locked in a tower, her hair has grown to obscene lengths, since if her locks are chopped, the magic goes to Mother God. Hell has led Rapunzel to believe she's her biological parent, and that she keeps her in the tower because the outside world is too dangerous. But having grown into an impetuous teenager, Rapunzel communicates her desire for freedom through the typical "I want" song method. Enter the hero, a swashbuckling Flynn wannabe named Flynn Rider, voice of Zachary Levi, who stumbles upon Rapunzel after stealing the princess crown from the local castle. He's your typical hipster bad boy, yet with a sensitive underbelly that's just waiting to be discovered by Rapunzel, along with Rider's help. Rapunzel breaks free of her prison tower and heads toward the kingdom in a series of chases and song numbers and involved character twists. Royal police are after Rider. Mother God. Hell is after Rapunzel, and eventually Rapunzel and Rider are after each other. This brings us to the animals. Unlike most Disney movies, there are no talking animals in Tangled, but there's a royal horse named Maximus, with tracking dog-like mannerisms out to find Rider, and Rapunzel has a pet chameleon that exists in the story merely to fill the obligatory animal reaction shot, though pointless to discuss in a children's film based on a fairy tale. Issues of logic crop up when it comes to Rapunzel's hair. The movie never quite, Other times, it's as though her flowing hairdo goes on for yards upon yards. Walt Disney had sketched some rough ideas for a Rapunzel story back in the 1940s, including a title character that used her lengthy locks, like a growing utility belt here. Rapunzel fashions her blonde hair into rope, uses it like a whip, and swings from it like a vine. Curiously, the movie never addresses how she keeps all that hair clean, despite its many uses. Walking around the forest along dirt paths is bound to build up some grime. Yet never does Fogelman address how her hair keeps that Pantene shine. Then again, the movie doesn't explain why her chameleon seems so all-knowing in its expression, only reactions, either though not advertised as one. The movie is a serviceable musical with music and lyrics by Alan Menken and Glenn Slate, respectively, but certainly nowhere near the iconic Disney standard of Beauty and Nat, The Beast, and The Little Mermaid, nor even the toe-tapping sounds of last year's Disney effort, The Princess and the Frog. The strongest songs are those attuned to the mother-daughter relationship between the passive-aggressive God and her loving would-be daughter, and the manipulation that God-hell causes. The one-note writer character has little motivation, making his I Want song contribution dull. When a pub filled with ruffians and scallywags sing about their strangely dainty desires in the movie's best tune, I've Got a Dream any one of these heart-filled thugs has more character drive than Ryder as the animation goes. There's some real beauty here toward the finally gorgeous sequence involving hundreds of floating lanterns, proves nothing short of a ween-spiring, and yet the rest of the animation is only functional, rarely carrying the viewer away into storybook mode. Photorealistic backdrops are populated by large-eyed character types that feel overly stylized for their environment. It's all very bright and colorful, no doubt accentuated beyond the norm for the sake of 3DS downfall dimming effect still. There's no sense of wonder about the production, which resolves to draw audiences using familiar Disney devices and modern humor for a consumable but in the end artistically vacant animation experience. Tangled remains a solid example of why Disney has resigned their crown as animation king to the likes of Pixar. And dare it be said, DreamWorks, the latest animated 3D Disney movie, Tangled, isn't as dryly subversive as some of those great old fractured fairy tales on Rocky and Bullwinkle, but it has a similar vibe of people goofing on the Brothers Grimm and having a jolly time. The fairy tale in this case is Rapunzel. The heroine, voiced by Mandy Moore, a princess shut up in the high tower of a castle by a bogus mother, Donna Murphy, who stole her as an infant for the rejuvenating power of her long tresses. It's a full-scale musical too early on. Rapunzel sings a ditty called When Will My Life Begin that recounts how she spends her days and nights, and though it's awfully spritly for a lifelong shut-in, Moore has a supple voice, the staging is amusing, and the tune by Alan Mine is catchy. Rapunzel has a little chameleon named Pascal with huge eyes that perches on her shoulders and gets a few good reaction shots. I can't help liking a movie with chameleon reaction shots. Her prince is an egotistical bandit who calls himself Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, and he climbs into her window to escape a vigilant horse he stole that turned around and came after him. I can't help liking a movie in which a man is pursued by a horse by and by. Flynn and Rapunzel end up in a tavern, full of slobbering giants and grotesques who first seem threatening but then show their sunnier sides. They sing a song called I've Got a Dream that rhymes femurs and dreamers and has a line that goes, I've got scars and lumps and bruises, plus something here that oozes. Very nice. Tangled is no big deal, but it's nowhere near as hard on the eyes as the Shrek movies, and it's full of felicitous touches. Pixar's John Lasseter was an executive producer in a film in which there's only one real villain. It's good that she's voiced by Murphy, who's Broadway's gift to animated movies. In one scene, the faux mother becomes distraught at Rapunzel's unreasonable demand to be let out of her tower. And Murphy puts a world of righteous indignation into the movie's best line. Oh, so I'm the bad guy now. Well, yes, you are, and you're going to get a come-up-pants that's worthy of your relax and enjoy other information about this film. Tangled, the 50th animated feature in the Disney catalog, has nothing to do with hair assist the usual with a Disney film. The voice talent is superb, but is sometimes an afterthought to the stunning visuals. This marriage of typical animation with CGI techniques led to this becoming the costliest animated film of all time. We're all familiar with the story of the girl with the flowing golden locks who lives in a tower, This is a modern-day take on that classic story Rapunzel's voiced by Mandy. More, day-to-day life plays out inside of said tower, in which she has no obvious means of escape. Unlike the previous versions of the character, this version of Rapunzel is vivacious and curious, yet perpetually reminded by her mother that she wouldn't be able to handle the outside world. Resigned but never defeated, she continues to exist until a stranger climbs through her window and everything changes for her and for everyone she encounters, Tangled with every action shot and its expertly choreographed dance and with breathtaking landscapes and a memorable soundtrack is an eye-popping treat for children. It's colorful and peppy with its cheerful and animated main character. There are many zany moments children will laugh at a character getting clobbered by a frying pan grown-ups. Not so much some will cringe as Yearly did, but I couldn't blame the character for using it either. But Tangled isn't just for kids. Parents can appreciate and or understand themes that go beyond simple entertainment and blossoming romance. The young girl consumed by wanderlust, the desire for everlasting youth, the yearning for something that is missing, and the longing for meaning in our lives. Children may have a hard time understanding what it means to desire something more outside of the latest toy or other material object. That is, Disney films are so successful in part because they appeal to all ages. Some offer more for parents than they doth their children, and vice versa. Rapunzel has no idea of the circumstances that led to her residing in the tower. Her world is a tangled mess, but she doesn't notice or care. She knows something is out there, longs for whatever it is, yet for her is just out of reach. Yet she feels safe and secure where she is in this world her mother created for her. The feeling is something we can all relate to, yet we also may still choose to continue to exist in our safe little bubbles, or we can choose to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there to explore and to find our purpose. As a parent, I can relate well a bit of ourselves as we focus our hearts and minds on parenting. We're well-intentioned in our desire to protect ourselves and our families, but what if we took a chance on something sometimes? With the success of Disney's live-action films, it comes as no surprise. The studio is also planning to release a live-action version of Rapunzel. Hopefully we see a fresh take presented on this old story. Only wish I viewed this in the theater, as everything from the beautiful, vibrant landscapes to the detailed artwork in Rapunzel's tower would surely have popped on the big screen. Tangled was only a minor box office success, in part due to its monstrous budget, but its charm did not catch the eye of my young daughter as much as it did for me. The soundtrack and characters were perhaps a bit mature for her. I finished it for the first time. On my own, the story is easy to follow and loosely based on the Brothers Grimm tale, and in this version is surely more palatable for children, although may fail to keep their attention long ago. A drop of liquid sunlight sprouts a magical healing flower. For centuries, Mother God has used the flower to retain her youth, and she is angered when soldiers from a nearby kingdom pluck it to heal their ailing and pregnant queen and properties. God tries to steal a lock of Rapunzel's hair to use the magic once again, but discovers that cutting the hair renders it powerless. She instead abducts Rapunzel and raises her as her own in a secret tower in order to keep the confined and isolated Rapunzel content. God teaches her to Firth, a Godel returns, and Rapunzel tries to show Flynn to her to demonstrate her readiness for the dangerous outside world. However, God still dismisses her. Rapunzel sends God away on a 3-day journey to acquire paints with God. Hell-gone Rapunzel hides the crown from Flynn and leverages it to persuade him to escort her to see the lanterns for her birthday along the way. Flynn brings Rapunzel to the Snuggly Duckling, a pub filled with menacing thugs who initially try to capture the wanted Flynn, but Rapunzel charms them instead. Meanwhile, God encounters Maximus, a palace horse determined to capture Flynn. Recognizing that kingdom guards may be closing in on her hidden tower, she returns there to check on Rapunzel, but she only discovers Flynn's satchel with the stolen crown, and she goes after the pair. The story is very well written, and spins on the original tale is pretty decently funny, very heartfelt and charming, also suspenseful and action-packed at times, and contains some well-and-led life lessons. However, the first act can feel a bit slow due to how much time is spent in Goth's tower. It's not really until Rapunzel leaves with Flynn where it starts picking up. The film is very charming and heartwarming, which leads to several heartfelt moments, like the growing relationship between Rapunzel and Flynn, the two seeing all the lanterns on their boat, and the ending where Rapunzel reunites with her real parents. There's also a decent amount of comedy and many of the humorous moments and bits to get a decent laugh, like Rapunzel interrogating Flynn, Maximus, and Pascal's snarky personalities, Rapunzel and Flynn at the Snuggly Duckling, the running gag about the wanted posters never getting Flynn's nose right, and some of the visual gags. The film is also pretty suspenseful and action-packed, as shown with Flynn being chased down by Maximus after stealing Rapunzel's crown. The royal guards, Maximus, and the stabbing tons chasing him and Rapunzel at the dam, and them trying to escape from drowning in one of the flooding tunnels, Flynn escaping custody and going back to the tower, and the climax, where our two leads confront God, the well-crafted, and shows that Disney really nailed their computer animation as they manages to transition the traditional Disney art style into CGI. The characters are all very well designed and are solidly animated. The backdrops and settings are highly detailed and gorgeous to look at, and there are some amazing effects like Rapunzel's magic, the water, and the lighting. The characters are all mostly pretty likable and well developed. Rapunzel is a good protagonist. She's friendly and very curious, yet also clueless about the world outside the tower, and feels conflicted about leaving at first, but she learns more about. As the film progresses, both the good Ash, she puts her trust in Flynn though reluctantly at first, and the bad Ash, she starts to see Gothel's true colors. Flynny's a pretty good character, as she's very snarky, cunning, witty, and very prone to causing trouble whenever he can. But as the film progresses, he starts to warm up to Rapunzel and open himself up to her, and becomes more noble and humble. Maximus and Pascal are both pretty funny comic reliefs, as they're both pretty snarky and untrustworthy of Flynn, but start to put their trust in him more as he warms up to Rapunzel, and by the end are willing to help him just as much as they would help her mother. God Hellas, a pretty solid and interesting villain, as she abducts Rapunzel as a baby just so she can use her hair to keep herself young forever, and throughout the years manipulates her into fearing the outside world and putting on a false caring personality, and is more than willing to kill anyone who stands in her way or expose her. The minor characters are a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, the thugs at the Snuggly Duckling are pretty funny, and Rapunzel's parents are very hopeful in seeing their daughter. Again, also, it's nice to see an animated film where both parents are alive from beginning to end. But on the other hand, the Stabbing Ton brothers are pretty standard brutes who want revenge on Flynn and aren't very memorable. And there's not a whole lot to the captain of the guard either, as all he wants is Flynn captured and locked up. The voice acting is pretty solid and leads to some great performances like Mandy Moore as Rapunzel, Zachary Levi as Flynn, Donna Murphy as Goodell, and more. The music and songs are very uplifting and well done. Alan Mine delivers his classic touch to the score, as it's very uplifting and dramatic, and the songs from him and Glenn Slater are pretty good, like the upbeat and wishful When Will My Life Begin, the soothing yet manipulative Mother Knows Best, which is unique for Avalon's song, the comedic I've Got a Dream, and the very heartwarming I See the Light. Overall, I think it's about as good as the Princess and the Frog, a pretty solid and worthy addition to the animation catalog, and would only help Disney's revival era continue to grow. From here, and I'd hope to cover the TV series and its pilot movie later this year, as I've heard great things about them. Disney's final fairy tale, I use quotation marks because Tangled seems just as likely to be their final fairy tale, in the same way that the fourth Friday the 13th film was the final chapter, looks at first glance to be the sort of smug, broad, pandering tribes. Often produced by DreamWorks, and anyone who has seen the trailer would be forgiven thinking that was what it was, yet in retelling the story of Rapunzel, Mandy Moore, it reveals itself to be a film that combines the best elements of classic Disney films, a touching, etching sincerity attached to well-drawn characters, and enchanted, airy, witty sense of humor, which works for both adults and kids without alienating either. Rapunzel is a princess whose hair was imbued with magical healing powers when she was born, the result of a special healing flower that was used to stop her mother dying during the birth. When only a few days old, she was kidnapped by God. Donna Murphy, an elderly witch who raised her Ash around daughter, using her hair's properties to remain eternally young despite the claims of her mother that the world outside is a dark and terrifying place. Rapunzel dreams of leaving her tower and seeing the wider world, particularly the strange lights that appear every year on her birthday. Her chance comes when Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, most famous as the star of NBC's Chuck, a thief who has just made off with a valuable crown belonging to Rapunzel's real parents, hides out in her tower after knocking him out and hiding the crown. Rapunzel makes a deal with Flynn. She will give him the crown if he will take her out of the tower and act as her guide, with her mother, the king's troops, and a horde of criminals in pursuit. Rapunzel and Flynn head out, and despite each being out for their own ends, they find themselves inextricably drawn together. Their subsequent journey is ripped straight out of the Disney playbook, moments of swashbuckling adventure interspersed with musical interludes and a sweet sentimentality, but is delivered with a wit and verve that sets it apart as does its surprisingly complex depiction of the central mother-daughter relationship. Mandy Moore makes Rapunzel a charming but feisty heroine, the sort of Disney princess who is more than willing to take matters into her own hands or hair as the moment requires, while Zachary Levi is hilarious and affecting as Flynn, delivering some of the funniest lines whilst word fighting with a horse. You should know that this is the strangest thing I've ever done, as well as some of its more heartfelt moments. The animation is really quite stunning too. Whilst being computer-generated, it seeks to replicate the hand-drawn feel of classic Disney and gives a painterly feel to the backdrops. The result is a lush, textured world which also has the dynamism of computer animation. It's also the first film I've seen that genuinely justifies its use of 3D in an artistic sense, as opposed to Piranha 3D and Jackass 3D, which make good use of it as a gimmick. Admittedly, it only manages that in one scene in which Rapunzel discovers that the lights in the sky are thousands of Chinese lanterns are let loose by her parents, in the hope that she will see them and come home, but it is genuinely one of the most beautiful things I've seen in an animated film. The integration of modern animation techniques with a more classically influenced style sums up the tone of the film too much like 2007's Enchanted, to which Tangled started out life as a sequel. There is an often biting wit that allows it to poke fun at the well-worn cliches of the fairy tale. The film is often genuinely hilarious, since rather than relying on a bevy of pop culture references, it has clearly been written by people who understand the tradition to which they are paying irreverent homage, more than Enchanted. Though Tangled is willing to let the mask of humor fall every so often in order to engage with story, there is a warmth to the film and the relationship between Rapunzel and Flynn that is very touching, and it is made all the more affecting by the fine balance the film strikes between gently mocking its story and characters and openly embracing them. Though Tangled is not quite on a par with the great film of the Disney canon, if it turns out to be their last fairy tale, and that is one. Big if it's a fitting coda that celebrates everything great about the studio in its own affectionate, clever, and flippant way. Directed by more detail to its finest moments, Tangled emanates the nostalgic feel of classic 2D animated Disney films. The main hero looks like Aladdin and Prince Charming, while the heroine resembles Ariel in the boat during Kiss the Girl and Aurora in the cottage. Full songs burst forth from protagonists and antagonists alike at various points, and many of the supporting characters provide extreme silliness and abundant comic relief. There's even a signature evil which to supply the majority of wickedness, though several of the character designs are rather bland and over-caricaturized. Their vivid animations interact well with the wild action, allowing Tangled to retain its wholesome family entertainment with endearing personalities and a cleverly expanded and much lighter interpretation of the Rapunzel fairy tale, unknowingly stolen from birth and confined to a tall, secluded tower throughout her childhood. Young Rapunzel Mandy Moore longs to explore the outside world and visit the nearby kingdom for her 18th birthday. Her mother god Donna Murphy, however, forbids her to leave the safety of their home, for fear of others exploiting the healing powers of the young girl's enchanted golden hair. When roguish bandit Flynn rider Zachary Levi stumbles upon Rapunzel's steeple, the rebellious teen spies her chance to finally fulfill her dreams, bartering with the thief to escort her to the king's castle. But the manipulating god Hell won't see her precious possession slip away so easily, and devises a plan to recapture the wayward youth intent on keeping her imprisoned forever. Tangled is an entertaining twist on the famous Grimm's tale, mixing various versions of the story with a noticeable Disney flair and teen-oriented dialogue. The presentation of the film harkens back to the days of traditional animation, most noticeably in the resemblance of character designs. Oddly, there are also some elements of the live-action Enchanted weaved in. Like most of the computer-animated films released in the last couple of years, the characters are all caricatures, assembled in such a way that they look like they could have been hand-drawn, while the movements feature plenty of unnatural, playful squashes and stretches. The environments and textures receive the super-realistic treatment instead, although formulaic with the standard heart-wrenching sacrifice and poignant climax, action-filled escape sequences. Broad-shouldered thugs, scary but kind, warriors, cuddly little animal sidekicks, and a dog-like noble horse. A decent villainous overlong, happily ever after conclusion in Mimes. Well, maybe not, though. Mimes Tangled maintains a steady sense of comedy, romance, adventure, and drama. Since Mandy Moore voices Rapunzel, several songs are included along with the standard lyrical turns by the leading man, villain, ouse, and background characters that work to bridge gaps in the story. Like a montage, one particular routine is thrown in to help protagonists out of a bind, which both pulls the audience out of the seriousness of the situation and also reminds them that in the world of a Disney cartoon, rarely are predicaments sinister. It's not quite on the level of Pixar's approach to more frightening debacles, but the fantasy is pleasant. And Convincing Tangled is an extraordinary Disney princess film directed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard in 2010, which transcends the boundaries of animated film by incorporating a variety of forms. The film is a modern reimagining of the classic tale of Rapunzel, staying true to the traditional essence of the narrative while immersing the audience in a balance of intense themes like resilience and hope, conveyed through moments of humor and song throughout the film. Tangled explores the nature of human desire, examining the different causes and effects of yearning, making the story deeply relatable to viewers. The film follows the story of the young Rapunzel Mandy Moore, who dreams of seeing the floating lights lanterns released on her 18th birthday. However, Rapunzel is confined to her tower by her manipulative mother, God-hell Donna Murphy, who exploits the magical anti-aging powers of Rapunzel's hair to maintain her own youth despite her mother's harsh refusals. Rapunzel never loses hope. This resilience is subtly highlighted through the film's color palette. Inside the tower, muted, dull tones dominate, while Rapunzel often gazes longingly at the vibrant green landscape bathed in golden sunlight and bright blue skies. Her determination is consistently emphasized through her optimism, which shines through in key moments of the film. The arrival of Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, marks a turning point for Rapunzel, revealing new layers of her character. Surprised by Flynn's confidence and arrogance, the innocence and purity on central to Rapunzel quickly evolve into fiery passion. Sensing an opportunity to finally leave the tower, Rapunzel clings to Flynn for guidance, showing her assertiveness by blackmailing him to achieve her goals. Though their partnership initially seems unlikely, full of trials and tension, the duo gradually develops strong chemistry, sharing moments of laughter and intimacy. As they begin to trust one another, they work together to tackle both their personal struggles and shared ambitions. In addition to its narrative, the film's thematic depth is enhanced by key symbolic elements. The lanterns symbolize hope and the pursuit of dreams, representing the idea of chasing what you long for regardless of the obstacles in the way. Both physically and metaphorically, Rapunzel's long golden hair represents not only her magical power, but also her agency and safety net. However, as Flynn bravely cuts her hair, it emphasizes that Rapunzel will no longer be confined to the world she knows. Instead, it symbolizes her newfound independence and the opportunity to start their new life. Thought the tale of Tangled could be analyzed endlessly. One of the film's greatest strengths is how it encourages viewers to reflect on their own lives. It reminds us not to sit idly by and merely wish for our dreams, but to take action and pursue them. By the end of the film, Rapunzel is no longer the sheltered, innocent girl with magical hair, but a courageous young woman willing to risk everything to follow her dreams and create her own destiny. And I think that is what makes the film so great and different compared to many other princess films. Extra information. What's happened to heroines in animated features for 60 years of the Walt Disney Company's domination of the format? Girls were the focal characters who could be expected to come of age, triumph over adversity, and in general man up. but the current animation zeitgeist at Pixar, DreamWorks and Fox's Blue Sky, the Ice Age series, concentrates on buddy movies and has all but abolished female-centered stories. It can't be simply that the Cartoon Directors Club is almost exclusively a male preserve, since the classic Disney films from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to Mulan were also men-made. It may be that their bosses think girls. Well, gotta boys movies, but boys won't gotta girls feature animation is an expensive business, and genocentric films are seen as an ish too small to be worth the cost at the Disney Animation Unit, now supervised by Pixar's John Lasseter. There's still a belief in Earl Power as shown with spectacular elan and artistry in last year's The Princess and the Frog, and today in the pleasing, warming Tangled. It's the brothers' grim story of Rapunzel imprisoned in a high tower by a witch with the girl's long hair. The witch's only means of access and egress under house arrest for years, agitating for her freedom mourned by the kingdom that misses. She's the Angansuchio fairy tale heroines, just a few differences. Rapunzel, voiced by Mandy Moore, has 21 maitresses that can serve as a rope ladder. Her jailer is not the Burmese government, but the crone Gothel, Donna Murphy, and whereas Suchi remained in confinement while her husband died of cancer in London. Our princess finds a dashing thief known as Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, facilitate her escape ever since Walt's day. Disney animators have thought that a musical film could be made from the Grimm brothers' story. It has the skeletal plot, yearning heroine wicked overseer and male Zazney cartoon pics in the studio's early years, Snow White, Cinderella, and its 90s renaissance, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, as 2005 Rapunzel Unbreaded, as it was known, was to be. The first feature directed by honored Disney animator Glenn Keane 5 years later. In a history as long and twisted as its heroine's hair, there's finally a movie with Byron Howard and Nathan Greno directing and Keane back in his customary role A's. Character animator supreme, the title was changed to Tangled because The Princess and the Frog was no great shakes at the box office and because Disney wanted to make the project seamless, gearish. The trailer suggests that the movie is an action comedy about a roguish guy, Flynn, whose mission is to storm the tower and free the girl inside, but now this is your basic and very enjoyable Disney princess, musical and empowerment tale to teach bright, dreamy girl show to grow to maturity and outgrowth, adults in charge in the Grimm version, the husband in a childless couple. Sneaks into the garden of God, hell the witch to steal a flower that guarantees fertility. The witch catches him and demands the couple's firstborn, whom she raises as her captive daughter until a prince shows up, etc. Ignored in all versions is this question: if Rapunzel can secure her tresses to a hook to allow the witch to climb up and down, why can't she hook the end of her quarry and climb down it there? God discovers that the girl's hair somehow brings eternally out, or at least chick middle age, to an old witch. She can swan around as long as her victim stays locked up. God knows the secret that many American parents act out but are slow to acknowledge, that confining their teens in enforced adolescence helps them feel younger too, as if uneasy at being left behind by the competition. This Disney near classic wades into the DreamWorks style of sitcom gags and anachronistic sass. Sorry, Blondie, Flynn tells Rapunzel at one point. I don't do backstory, but the visual palette is more sophisticated, especially in the scenes where sparkling nocturnal lanterns illuminate Rapunzel's birthday, and the film gradually achieves the complex mix of romance, comedy, adventure, and heart that defines the best Disney features. The inevitable animal friends, a horse for Flynn and a chameleon for Rapunzel, radiate plenty of personality without speaking. Moore does well by her slightly underwritten role, while Murphy, a treasured musical theater diva for a quarter century. The human comedy song of Singapore Passion, The King and I, makes Scott Hell one of the most potent schemers in the Disney canon visually. The character suggests B.B. Newworth in her Morticia Adams get-up, but no one can summon the malice in humor and the fun in pain like this prima donna. Tangled is the first Disney animated feature since 1997, with music by Alan Mine, who scored most of the studio's Renaissance films, back when numbers from cartoon musicals not only monopolized the Academy Awards Best Original Song category, but also broke out as top of the pops hits and instant standards. His The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, along with Elton John's The Lion King, became long-running Broadway shows. Tangled should be even easier to adapt to the stage, since for once the main characters are all human. No singing teapots, monsters, or meerkats required. The songs with lyrics by Glenn Slater don't sound On first hearing like top drumming, but they smoothly fill their functions. The opener, When Will My Life Begin Is My Life Beginner. I want the song a Disney tradition that stretches back to Snow White someday. My prince will come, the witch's mother knows best, as a pot of poisoned honey from the killer queen bee meaning. And Slater also contribute a generically tuneful love ballad. I See the Light, which is sure to be nominated for a Best Song Oscar, and a criminal chorus called I've Got a Dream, proclaiming that every scurvy brigand is athwart just a Broadway gypsy between. Show sits the score's main example of Royster, with the song will play superbly as these condacto penner in the stage version we're imagining, for which we can also award Murphy a just slightly premature Tony as Best Actress in a musical move over Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King within the annals of the non-Pixar Disney canon. Tangled is utterly fantastic, good enough to stand head and shoulders alongside those aforementioned animated classics. One would never have expected such a rich, fulfilling experience based on the trailers and television ads, which falsely position the male love interest of Longadine Rapunzel, voiced by Mandy Moore, as the lead character, and hide the fact that this is a full-blown musical, blending impeccably gorgeous traditional animation with its more current CG counterpart. The film is a beauty to behold, albeit with one downside. The theatrical 3D version slightly dulls the colors and brightness, and in some scenes layers the image with an almost gauzy sheen. This deficiency, however, will no doubt be corrected by the two-dimensional version and in the glory of high def, so it's difficult to fault the movie itself, which is a splendid entertainment encompassing all age groups and audience members without a showy, cynical pop culture reference in sight. Tangled is free to tell its lovely, involving story with a purity that proves as refreshing as a tall glass of cool water in an arid desert, with long unshad golden hair that holds the power to health sick and make those who touch it while she sing appear more youthful. Rapunzel has lived her entire life in the confines of a high stone tower, taken care of by Mother God-Hell Donna Murphy, and forbidden to ever step foot outside every year on her birthday. Rapunzel is aided by a parade of floating lights in the yonder sky, and can't help but feel like they are meant just for her. With her 18th birthday approaching, she wants nothing more than to see them up close. But God, hell won't have any of it. When a handsome supposed thief named Flynn Rider, Zachary Levi, decides to hide from authorities in Rapunzel's tower one day, it is the catalyst for her journey out into the world. What Rapunzel does not yet realize is that God is not her real mother, but an old conniving hag who stole her as an infant from her real parents, the reigning king and queen of the land, as a means of ensuring she stay young and never die. Tangled goes to prove that when all the pieces fall into place and you get right down to it, nobody does animated family features as well as Walt Disney Pictures. The formula is faithful to their animated pictures of old, pitting a plucky, downtrodden princess against an evil witch of a villain, as she gradually comes into her own skin, discovers her destiny, and falls in love. All of these narrative tropes work like gangbusters. Here Rapunzel is a lovable protagonist, tough yet vulnerable, with such an honest heart that she can't help but feel guilty for disobeying her mother, even as she is overjoyed to finally feel the grass between her toes and the sunlight in her hair. Flynn Rider is a well-developed suitor, smoldering yet misunderstood, who hides his true self and name until Rapunzel tears his defenses down. Their relationship runs a bit deeper than the norm for this kind of movie and grows to mean more to the viewer because of the added care directors Nathan Greno and Byron Howard bring to it. Animal sidekicks with human characteristics, but who blessedly don't talk, come in the form of Rapunzel's pet chameleon Pascal, his color frequently changing to blend into his surroundings, and diligent guard horse Maximus, who begrudgingly agrees to try and get along with Flynn in order to help with Rapunzel's plight. Every tried and true fairy tale is only as strong as its villain, and screenwriter Dan Fogelman, 2008's Bolt, has created a doozy out of God, a petulant, egotistical woman who loves Rapunzel for selfish reasons and is not above turning against her God, is expertly visualized from an aesthetic standpoint, becoming darker and more threatening as the story proceeds, But what is especially appreciated is how she is written with far more shades than a bad guy usually gets. Yes, God is for all intents and purposes a kidnapper, but she has taken care of Rapunzel for the better part of 2 decades. She's also capable of being passive-aggressive and finally downright malicious. Donna Murphy, 2007's The Nanny Diaries, is fabulous in her voicing work as God Hell, bringing to life one of the great villains in Disney's illustrious history, her main song, Mother Knows Best, La Terre Pridine. Indelible fashion as a showstopper and another nostalgic return to the way. Animated features used to be made. The actors have been chosen for their talent and appropriateness to the characters they are playing, not because they are famous A-listers who might be able to pull in bigger weekend grosses in addition to Donna Murphy's sterling turn. Mandy Moore, 2007's License to Wed, is an irresistible Rapunzel, whose singing voice is as exquisite as usual, while Zachary Levi, 2009's Alvin and the Chipmunks, the squeak-wall sounds a shansome, dashing in warm ashes Flynn Rider, looks all the performers' vocals are on target, doing full service to the fun melodic original music and songs composed by Alan Mine, exciting, funny, scary at times, and emotionally resounding. Tangled is a timeless joy with a ridiculous wealth of standout moments and very few debits. 2 bumbling sidekicks, whom God Hell takes under her wing, known as the Stabbing Ton Brothers, could have been done without, but are used sparingly. By far the most enchanting set piece is Rapunzel's and Flynn's nighttime viewing of the luminescent procession of lanterns lifted into the sky around the royal castle. Rapunzel, not yet aware of their significance to her, but feeling none the less connected to them. It's truly a sight to behold. Meanwhile, the climax with Rapunzel sacrificing her freedom for Flynn's safety and his subsequent nupping of Gothel's devious plans is both thrilling and touching, sending out the worthwhile message that who a person is on the inside is worth far more than their physical image and attributes. No pishable makeover scene here. Thank you very much, with imagination, bold animation that joins the old with the new, memorable characters, fine songs, and a story worth caring about. Tangled is one of this year's happiest surprise. This film, directed by Nathan Greno, Byron Howard, screenplay by Dan Fogelman, produced by Roy Conli, starring Mandy Moore, Zachary Levi, Donna Murphy, edited by Tim Marin, music by Alan Mine, production companies Walt Disney Animation Studios, Walt Disney Pictures, distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, release dates November 14th, 2001. Arrow Inn, El Capitan Theater, November 24th, 2010 in United States, running time 100 minutes, country, United States, language, English. Budget $260 million, box office $592.5 million. So guys, this is the review of Tangled movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.